Hi class, so this is the last video response and reflection for PE 578. And the first question is, when did you first burn out? And for me, I think I burned out at about the age of 13. I was playing both park and recreation soccer and club soccer. At that time, I was training year round, probably 3 to 4 days a week for at least 2.5 hours. Most of the time, we had tournaments on every few weekends, and during the so-called off season, we were still training. Then during league, we played both Saturdays and Sundays, or a season, I should say. Um, there were some weeks that I had training for specific skills with my trainer after practices or on days that we didn't have team trainings. So, physically, how I felt at this time, I remember feeling just completely depleted. During that time, I was also squeezing in time for basketball in the winter, which added a pretty big physical stress to my body. Um, I remember not feeling like I could get enough sleep and always being tired and body being in a constant state of soreness just because of the amount of physical demands that I was placing on it. I also started having a few ankle injuries, which I can probably attribute to the physical burnout and just being fatigued physically. Psychologically, how did I feel at this time? I think it was difficult to go from school to practice, do homework, get up each morning and do the same thing over and over. And there was times that I didn't want to go to school or I just didn't want to go to practice and mentally just wasn't into practicing. Of course, as most athletes, I always seem to manage to be ready for the games, but I do believe that due to my psychological state, um, that my performance suffered. Not to say that it was completely horrible, but there was definitely games that I just wasn't there, and um, I remember feeling like I didn't love the game as I used to, and honestly, there was times I just didn't feel like being out on the field, which was unusual for me, and just that blah feeling just there. I also know that there was times where I was pretty moody and impatient when I was at school and at home, and just felt uptight all the time. And relative to questions 4 and 5, how long did you feel this way? I think that I felt this way for about 2 years through my freshman year of high school. And at that time, I chose to focus only on club soccer, which was still a big time commitment. But it was only one team, and then there was a built in, so to speak, um, off period or rest season where we did minimal conditioning, but really just gave our bodies time to rest. I did play basketball in the winters, but it wasn't as big of a commitment. Um, Lastly, did your symptoms occur suddenly or build over time? Um, I think that my symptoms built over time. I started playing at the age of 3 for reasons. It was sort of a physical therapy for me because I had some issues with my feet and legs. So that's how I got into soccer initially. But the older I got, the more I wanted to play soccer and be involved, and the harder it became physically and psychologically, just because of the wear and tear on the entire body. My parents were really supportive in doing what I wanted and getting me to all my games and drove me everywhere just so that I could play. And I don't think that I realized I was burning out until my performance really began to suffer. I didn't feel like playing any longer, which was really not like me. And I think at that point was when I realized that, this was time to make a decision and to kind of focus more on what I was really wanting to do. I was and still am pretty self-critical of my own play and my evaluation, and that I think is what led me to make those decisions to just focus on club soccer, and being as my play was suffering because of the amount of teams I was playing on or the year-round training, it was getting to my head. So the best decision I could do was to cut one thing off and make myself better at the other thing. So in regards to burnout, that is a reflection. I'm sure that I did go out of it because I ended up going on to play college soccer, but I think there was a period of time even through college soccer that it became pretty demanding and stressful as it should be. But I'm pretty sure I went through a period of time as well there that I was starting to feel burnt out as well.